So, good morning, everybody. It's our great pleasure to have you all today on the 24th of January, the International Day of Education. We are here today to celebrate the profession that is the dearest to our heart, the thing that we spend most of our time doing. So, I hope with the experts we are receiving today, we will have a very good opportunity, very interesting topic that we all think of and we all deal with. So today is webinar celebrating the International Education Day, and that is as a part of the Let's Learning Hub project activities that we are part of University of Alexandria, Egypt, and University of Sousse, Tunisia. The project is having for objective to set up a network of learning labs between the University of Sousse in Tunisia, Alexandria, Egypt, AUFL Beirut, Lebanon, and Fribourg in Switzerland. We do joint activities related to educational innovation and digital technologies, and this actually is part of these activities. Several joint online debate sessions have been organized throughout the last year, involving experts to discuss issues related to education. And on this occasion, we are very happy to take this initiative jointly in Alexandria University, jointly with the Learning Lab of the University of Sousse, led by Professor Lilia Schneti. And the celebration of today is done under the theme that has been set by the UNESCO, which is Recover, and Revitalize Education for the COVID-19 generation. We have spoken before of the third generation, and we spoke of the digital natives, but the COVID-19 generation is a new icon term that has been put in this theme by the UNESCO. So we have experts from 4 countries involved in the Let's Learning Lab network. This today also we will continue to in our events in general. Today we still have experts from the countries represented by the network. We have Professor Barbara Klaas from the University of Geneva, Professor Wajdi Korba from the University of Sousse, Professor Sami Nassar from Cairo University and the Egyptian e-learning university, and Professor Natalie Rafael from the Lebanese University. So having given a brief introduction of the event, allow me to present Professors Natalie and Wajdi before starting the discussion that will be in form of question answer session with our experts. So, Professor Wajdi Korba is obtained in 1995 the engineering diploma from École Centrale de France, and in the same year the master degree in production engineering and computer sciences from Lille. He is a PhD in production management, automatic control, and computer sciences of the University of Sciences and Technologies of Lille, France. Professor Wajdi is a full professor. He is habilité à diriger les recherches. He published around 140 research papers on scheduling, performance, evaluation, discrete optimization, design, and monitoring. He is the Dean of the Institute of Computer Science and Communication Technologies of the University of Sousse. And he is also a member of the University Council. He led the Department of E-Learning of the University of Sousse for the period from 2008 to 2011, and he is the member of the Council of the Virtual University of Tunisia. He is a member of several pedagogic innovation projects involving Let's Learning Lab, Slide, and he is also a scientific advisor representing Tunisia in the scientific ICT H 2020 of the European Professor Natalie Rafael is our guest today. Natalie began her career in 2002 as a French teacher in public schools, then went on to work on her career council as a career counselor. Since then, Natalie has followed multiple national and international trainings in France, China, USA, and Egypt, which helped her to get the title of COT in several fields related to education and online learning. As part of her efforts, she has elaborated and developed new curricula for languages and social studies for the Lebanese technical schools with the support of the GIZ organization. And since the inception of language department at the Faculty of Sciences of the Lebanese University, Natalie has served as a French coordinator. Besides that, she serves as coach at the Faculty of Pedagogy, also at the Lebanese University. She is a member of numerous committee exams, national and international, like the official academic and technical exams, DELF, DCF, of the Institute. She has recently graduated from Harvard Graduate School of Education as a fellow of the Middle East Professional Training Initiative and became regional convener in favor of this fellowship. She attended training the coaches with the New York University on critical thinking and instructional dialogue. And Natalie has one book and some publications in French literature. She conducted workshops on new approaches and innovation on French language, both at the national and international level. And she mentioned Arabic, English, and French. She enjoys traveling, and she's a very, very dear friend to us. Thank you, Lilia. I would pass the floor to you to present the other speakers and yourself. I'm Ghada Al-Khayyat. I'm the professor and the chair of the Department of Information Systems and Computers, Alexandria University, and I am the director of the Pedagogical Innovation Unit at my university. Lilia, the floor is yours to present yourself and the guests.
Okay, thank you, Ghada. Welcome, dear colleagues. Thank you very much for your presence today. I'm Lilia Shnichi. I am Associate Professor in Computer Science and expert in Technology Enhanced Learning, researcher also in Technology Enhanced Learning. I have graduated from German University in Braunschweig in Germany, and my research topics are basically Technology Enhanced Learning and Assessment. I'm coordinator of the Learning Lab in Sousse University in Tunisia, and I'm also co-author of many online courses and the first MOOC in Tunisia in computer science. I'm very happy to be with you today for this activity regarding our network Let's Learning Labs, and we will celebrate the International Education Day. And allow me with great pleasure to introduce two of my colleagues, Professor Sami Nassar, who is Professor of Education at the Graduate School of Education, Cairo University, Egypt, and Dean of the Faculty of Educational Studies, National Egyptian E-Learning University. He is author of several books that are concerned with lifelong learning and adult education, such as Lifelong Learning in the Arab Region, Policy Implication in 2019, The Status of Adult Learning and Education in the Arab States, regional report of UNESCO in 2017. He is also a member in several national and regional bodies such as Egyptian Supreme Council of University, National Council of Women, Egypt Supreme Council of Culture, and the Arab Feminist Union. Welcome, Professor Sami Nassar. And I'm happy that you are today with us for sharing your expertise and knowledge regarding the technology enhanced learning and online education. And I'm very happy to welcome my dear friend, Professor Barbara Klaas, who is researcher and senior lecturer at Tpac Geneva University, which offers a master in teaching and learning with technology since 1995, a program for which she was a student for more than 30 years ago. She was one of the first PhD students of Tpac in Switzerland, and earned her PhD in 2009, working on the design of blended learning environment. And currently we are more and more speaking about blended learning. Currently, she teaches research methods courses in blended and online modalities, and works on an SNF research project entitled Open Education for Research Methodology Teaching Across the Mediterranean. So welcome, Professor Barbara, and happy to have you with us today and to share your expertise regarding open education and technology enhanced learning. So Ghada, the floor is yours. I see your cat, and you can give the cat.
that is celebrating education too. So,
So nice.
Where is
so
Ali?
welcome, Professor Barbara. We are very happy to have you with us today. And let us start this interesting discussion with the first question addressed to your good self. So, on the occasion of the International Education Day, can you share with us, in your opinion, and due to the COVID-19 crisis, the main challenges faced by education and education today, education and educators today?
So if I understood well, it is the floor is mine?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody. And a big, big thank you to Rada and Lilia for inviting me this afternoon. Just a small precision, I'm not professor. I don't have the status of professor, just in between us. Well, thank you so much.
Recorded, Barbara.
Sorry?
You are recorded.
Yes, recorded or not, not a problem. I mean, I just need, you know, I'm Swiss, I need to state the things. So I don't have the status of professor.
Sorry for this mistake, sorry.
No problem, no problem. So thank you again for having invited me, because in fact, it is, of course, a great opportunity to be with you, but it is also an opportunity to learn new things. I will be very honest with you. I wasn't aware, I didn't know about this International Education Day. So this was the first thing I learned, and I'm grateful to you. And the second thing is about this COVID-19 generation. I didn't know that such a generation was already labeled by researchers. And from the quick research I did on this generation, what I understood is that, in fact, it is almost the Z generation, namely people born between 1990 and 2010, and who saw their early life as workers or late life as learners completely disrupted by COVID-19. So this is what I understood. Now you asked me about the crisis and the challenges. Well, you know, in the term crisis, what I see is that it has two faces. I mean, it has the danger and disruption face, but it has also the opportunity face. And if we look at the crisis, at the disruption, in fact, everybody says a pandemic has disrupted everything, but has it really disrupted practices in education? I'm being very provocative. What we have seen is that teachers, and they did the best they could. I'm not criticizing anything. I'm just talking about practices. What they did is doing the same online as what they were doing in face-to-face. Zoom was all over the place. We heard about Zoom fatigues, etc., etc. So where was the engagement of students? I mean, did we really want to have them learn? So we talk a lot about this pandemics being a disruption. I'm not sure it disrupted practice. I'm more sure, well, it's an idea that it highlighted, in fact, a crisis in education that was already present before in terms of practices. I think that already in face-to-face education, we had really problems engaging students, having them motivated, etc. And so the pandemics was in fact a point to highlight problems that already existed. And why is education in crisis and society in crisis? Well, my perspective is that it is in crisis because for about 20 years now, we have been changing paradigm. We have been changing from an industrial society to an information society, to the knowledge society. And changing paradigm takes a lot of time, takes a lot of energy, and takes, changes in practice. And so step by step, we see, of course, small niches where practices change, but the mainstream hasn't changed. So to have the mainstream change practices and really step into the knowledge society, the challenges I see for education stakeholders are the main challenges, to be very quick, for teachers, first of all, I don't know if you are familiar with the Technological, Pedagogical, and Content Knowledge Framework, the Tpac Framework. For me, this is really a landmark, because if a teacher masters the technology, the pedagogy, and the content of his domain, he will be able to teach in agile manners and to adapt. For instance, in the pandemics, we could have imagined that we know that teenagers went a lot on video games like Minecraft. We could have imagined that math teachers could adapt and teach mathematics through Minecraft. Well, just like that. So another challenge for a researcher is to conduct research that we need. Again, I'm being provocative and I'm referencing to a paper of Thomas Reeves, which he issued in 2020, and which was entitled "The Research We Have Isn't the Research We Need." And in fact, he's pointing at the fact that we do a lot of research on things, but not on real problems. For instance, I mean, when reading about UNESCO's website about this International Day, I mean, I was astonished to see that more than 280 million things, I think, if I remember well, children and youth didn't go to school. So a real problem we have is how to integrate these young people in the knowledge society. So this is the kind of research that we would need. Focus on problems and not on things, mobile device, etc., etc. A challenge for learners is to shift and to take a role of active and responsible citizens in a society that must be ecological, in a society where he must be a consumer, but also a producer. And so, I mean, change completely the mindset. And the challenge for policy and institutions is, of course, to provide frameworks and policies that are compatible with the new practices. So these are the challenges. And I think can you say again the question, please? Because I don't remember if there was another part or not.
Yes,
the challenges was in this COVID-19 crisis, what do you think the main challenges that are faced by education and educators today?
Okay. So, yeah, I think that the main challenges are to switch practice, in fact, as I said. And one framework that would be really, that is really promising is open education. I mean, open education with the values that it is vehiculing, you know, designed for access, empowerment, agency, things like that. Open education represents really a paradigm shift that could enhance new practices. So I think that open education could definitely be a way.
Thank you, Barbara. So globally, openness in open education and the change of practices, as you said, we had problems that we were not aware of even before COVID-19. This takes me actually to Professor Korba Wajdi. I guess you agree with Barbara on the existence of practices and that we need to change, and the openness really in education. So in your opinion, how can technology enhanced learning contribute to the attainment of the improvement of practices or the improvement of competencies, both at the levels of learners and educators? Sir Wajdi, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to thank you for the invitation. It's a great honor being with my colleagues. I think I could not agree more about what said our colleague, but there is always a but. I think that we can divide digital competencies into 3 levels or groups. A basic one, which is the knowledge, the technical competencies. A second level is the use of this knowledge. And the third one is the mastery of these competencies. That means taking benefit of these tools or these competencies. So far, our educational system is quite good, quite used to deal with the first point. That is to say, the theory, teaching, knowledge itself, technical competencies. But and we also we even have lectures of office softwares, making text, dealing with text editors, making slides, and so on. And we, that means the educators, assumed for a long time that passing through the practice is very easy. That means that practicing or using these technical competencies, this knowledge, is quite obvious. And obviously, this is wrong. This was wrong. I think that we all can see that we have entire generations having problems with these competencies. So it's not really easy to pass through these tools. Luckily for us, we have a Z generation. This Z generation who born with technology and was immersed in digital technology very early on. So children have become more comfortable with digital tools than their parents. They are more used with these tools. So educational system, I think, made less efforts to the second point, which is the know-how, how to use these skills, assuming it's worthless. This has 2 consequences: to surrender these skills to unknown external actors, surrender the know-how, which is quite dangerous. Young people have been left to their fend for themselves. And also the second consequence is that they totally ignored the last point. That means that we have a generation which doesn't know really to take benefit of these tools. So as a consequence, we all as educators have plenty of examples of emails, discussions, presentations, delivered work, where the substance is good or excellent, but the form is really terrible. This situation is not good, but it's quite normal situation because teachers, educators don't have time to teach a lecture and at the same time to introduce new skills. Here where technology enhanced learning becomes really very important. At first, it doesn't change the content, the first point, the theory. But in the second point, the use of this technology is accompanied by teachers. They can assist students in their use of these tools, so they can learn more and better using it. And they also can help and assist students for using it well through communications, through presentations, and we have time at that moment to take benefit of these tools or these digital tools. So the know-how is better learned and better used. So as we see, the learning of modules with technology enhanced learning methods is or can be a chance to improve this knowledge. Their use and mainly their correct use can help students to improve the 3 points, the 3 parts of these skills. But we have to be aware of one point, that we have that the educators themselves must be prepared to these points. That means that educators don't have only the role of giving the knowledge, the theory. They have also to have to give assistance to the students for the best practices of using these tools, and also how to communicate better with these tools. So we have to make sure that educators are themselves well prepared to these points, which is not really generalized now. So we still have a big need of specialists, experts to invent new ways of education using these tools, to innovate new ways, making or pushing forward the knowledge of students, not only in the technical point, but also in the use of these tools, and I insist, using well these tools. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wajdi, for your contribution. And I will start by the last word that you mentioned, which is innovation and need of innovation. And my question will be for my friend Natalie. And I would like to ask you, Natalie, if you consider that COVID-19 was a very good opportunity for students to enhance maybe their digital skills or their digital competencies, can we consider that this was also a very good framework to implement or to deploy pedagogical innovation scenarios, or to enhance this pedagogical innovation? Was it really an opportunity, this crisis, to go forward towards pedagogical innovation? What do you think, Natalie?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lilia. Are you hearing me? Just
yes.
Check my connection. Okay,
yes.
Great, thank you. Okay, first of all, I would like to express my extreme happiness to be part for this special event concerning the International Day of Education, mostly this year under the COVID-19 influence on the learning system worldwide. I would like also to say a special thank to you, Dr. Ghada and Dr. Lilia, for giving me the opportunity to be a panelist on this webinar. As my colleague mentions, and as everybody agrees about the COVID-19 pandemic, disruption of our usual life. So it forced us to change our habits and trends. It affects all sectors and life domains on all levels, and especially the educational system that was suspended by multiple lockdowns and fear of spreading the virus among students and the teaching body. I will talk about the Lebanese context and in the Lebanese educational system. And in order to save the academic year, due to the multiple lockdown, the immediate response was to shift from face-to-face learning to online learning. Something that in Lebanon we were not ready at all for it, both on structural level and the executional level. Also, I want to mention that some universities, some private universities, had already their Blackboard or Moodle, but it wasn't conceived to be for a full online learning. Later on, when the restrictions of the lockdown were eased, we shifted to blended learning. Things did not work out health-wise, and a strict lockdown was reimposed, which forced us again to go back to a full online teaching system. I'm saying that because although the multiple changes were abrupt and exposed students, teachers, parents, and in fact, all the educational system to loads of stress, it was a kind of a stepping stone to a new era in teaching. So our first trial of online learning in the Lebanese system was a kind of a hit and miss, mainly due to the lack of experience and knowledge of available online systems and platforms for online learning. The only way was to complete the task, to send lessons as PDF or a voice messages through the WhatsApp application. Meanwhile, and in the background, lots of meetings were held by different educational sectors on all levels, primary school, secondary school, Mehe, Lebanese University, all the private university, and even the NGOs, to implement a new educational system based on the available technology and introducing it to the learning community. The first online workshops were strictly dedicated to teachers in order to make them more familiar with the platforms considered and its capabilities. So emphasizing on enhancing their soft skills and promoting the tools to achieve an efficient online learning, virtual meetings were also held to lessen the curricula, the school year time, and the teaching hours accordingly. So from the crisis, a complete teaching framework was conceived and still under development after continuous assessment of daily needs. So this was the Lebanese context in this pandemic, the COVID-19. So it's a new framework. We built a new framework and taking into consideration all the tools or all the platforms that the Lebanese Ministry of Education or the Lebanese University used. It's like we use Teams or Google Classroom, but nowadays we are using Teams, and I can say 90% of schools, public and private schools.
Thank you very much, Natalie. Thank you for this sharing your experience regarding and the practices that were conducted during this crisis in Lebanon. Thank you, Natalie. Now I'd like to ask my dear colleague, Professor Sami Nassar. Do you hear me, Professor Sami?
Yes.
Professor? Yes, great. So I'd like to ask you, Professor Sami, do you think that this switch to online education, whether the problem of equity to access to the education, was it solved during this movement to online education? Can we say that everybody has access to education? To tell you the truth, in Tunisia, for example, many students shared their problem regarding access to online education during this crisis since March. And I mean, a lot of discussion and a lot of debates were conducted regarding this problem. What do you think regarding this issue, Professor Sami?
I would first to express my deep thanks to you for inviting me to participate with you in this webinar, with this very famous and very those intellectuals who come from many parts of the world. I am happy to be with you in this seminar. As for your question, I agree with all what's mentioned about the impact of the crisis of the pandemic on education, and it's expected, or the mission of e-learning technology is the transmission and diffusion of knowledge and democratization of knowledge all over the world. But is this happened really? Of course not. During the pandemic, the situation is very different. The shift to online learning has amplified the problem of inequality in education and imposed a number of challenges to all educational institutions all over the world and in Egypt and in the Arab world. Well, here in Egypt, or as Natalie has mentioned, in Lebanon, or in so many Arab countries, the lack of access to digital devices, poor internet connections, and widening of the digital divide are causing so many students to be left behind. They have not access to schools, or they have not access to education through IT technologies. Especially those students come from low-income backgrounds and from rural areas. They are less likely to have access to a digital device. And this sharpens the divide, or the distinction between those students who have high-speed access to internet, to phones, to tablets, and laptops, and those who don't have. Also, the most important social groups who are deprived from access to education during COVID-19 pandemic are the refugees. And we face this problem in our Arab countries because of the political conflicts in Lebanon, in Egypt, also in Jordan, in Libya, all over in Yemen. These refugees are deprived from access to education. Also, residents of rural areas, girls who are socially conservative to get access to these devices. Also, there is sharp digital divide between that could impede the transition to online education. For example, 48% of the Arab households don't have access to internet. To home internet. Yes, but we have some countries in the Gulf areas who have 100% internet to all to all households. But we have some other countries like Sudan, for example, 30% in urban areas. So we have so many factors that impede achieving equality in education during the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Semi. But just to go deeper in this question, Dr. Semi, I have a question. When you were speaking, actually, equity in education, or equal access to education, I think it was not present even in face-to-face education before this crisis. I mean, I don't think that this problem appeared when when you use it digital, or
Yes.
do you think that? Yes.
If you can, I said it deepens it. It sharpens.
Yes.
The problem of inequality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so many. There is high percentage of students who has left school at all. They don't go. But we see for example, in Egypt, we have in private schools, the students take their lessons at home through online education. Because they have the facilities and abilities to do so. The schools are equipped equipped. Also, we have the Ministry of Education, the Egyptian Ministry of Education has established so many platforms and distributed some tablets.
Yes.
To secondary schools students and etc. But the problem is that some students who live in rural areas have no access to internet, or very weak access to internet. They are not, their parents, we shift also to homeschooling. Their parents don't have the experience to supervise and sustain this problem at school.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Sami. I'd like to now to ask my dear friend Barbara. Can the open education be a kind of solution for this problem? Maybe.
Well, you know, a solution. I mean, the problem is so huge. I don't think there is magics and one solution that will be able to solve everything, and especially not a technological issue. But open education, again, as I said, with its values, the fundamental values of putting the commons at the center stage, you know, I mean, about managing resources and sharing wealth in the commons as a collectivity, and not as we do it now, the market or the state. I mean, putting this commons at center stage is really one of the values of open education on which I think we could hope for better things to come.
Okay.
So yes, maybe open education could do it, but usually today, open education and the open movement as a whole, because open movement, I mean, you must have heard about open science, but there is open government, there is open everything. I mean, with its values that I have already talked about, transparency, empowerment, agency, etc. So people usually are not aware of this movement. So the first thing would be to inform people and to train them how to change practice and how to act in an open manner. For instance, if we come back to teachers, I mean, open educational resources are well known. I mean, maybe you don't know about the open movements, but you must have heard about open educational resources. And so one practice for a teacher, one change we can do is, yes, share our resources, share our curricula, reuse curricula that are out there, provide feedback to peers who are worldwide. I mean, work as a community and share things. So this would be one practice that could be changed for teachers. And I'm sure you are aware of Creative Commons licenses, which enable this kind of things. And also, I mean, this paradigm shift means new economical models. And people are not aware of these economical models, which could be, I mean, from which they could live, putting center stage to commons. So one thing would be also to provide just people with examples. For instance, Dr. Nasser just said that about 30% of people in urban area, I don't remember the country exactly, I'm sorry.
In Sudan.
They don't have access, they have access to internet, only 30%. So we could imagine, and this is just, I mean, thinking aloud, we could imagine that some people, some teachers could download open textbooks that are, of course, appropriate for their context, and print it, and then sell it or give it away for something to people who don't have access. You see, there are models, new ways of thinking that we really need to implement. And so showing examples of these new practices is also a way of promoting open education. And then, of course, it is the mindset that we need to change. I mean, everybody, the society needs to change the mindset and thinking openly. And, you know, I have already said this somewhere, but I keep saying it because the World Wide Web was invented in the 90s, and it was invented by Tim Berners-Lee to exchange freely and rapidly information among scholars. And then 30 years have passed, and again we are here. So somehow, I mean, the ideas were there, but they have been stolen for 30 years. So now, I mean, our job is really to keep focused on these open values in our practice and be careful that they are not stolen again. And of course, I mean, it takes, I mean, changing paradigm takes energy, takes time. We need to accept this, that we are in a fuzzy time, in between time. But our job, I think, is to empower this COVID-19 generation so that these open values become reality for them and for their children. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Baba. You said this word fuzzy. It's a fuzzy time, but also in your first contribution, you said it's we have to learn to be agile to address these issues and this problem. And
science.
Exactly. Excuse me.
Barbara is very much using the terms of computer
yes,
science.
Yes, exactly. And the question that I have is being agile and thinking fuzzy. Can we think, Professor Wajdi, that we can have a kind of sustainable development using this technology enhanced learning? Can you speak about sustainability based on all these parameters and based on all these changes in our environment, in our practices, in our way to learn, to teach, and to address these issues? What do you think?
Oh, what a question. I think that I will be more provocative than my colleague, Dr. Barbara. And I will link this question with the COVID-19 crisis. And I can say that COVID-19 crisis, or all crises like COVID-19, is very good for nature. People work less. They travel less. We have less air conditioning or heaters in administrations, classrooms, and so on. So we have less energy produced and used. And we even saw in social media several savage animals walking across streets in towns. So since we say that, we can say we can stop thinking about nature. The coronavirus take it in charge. So it's not that easy, luckily. First of all, this crisis will end one day, as we say, inshallah, and we will go back to previous situation, even worse. the restart period will be worse for environment than the previous period, because the production will restart with maximum speed. So we will have a lot of energy to use, and environment will be at least as worse as we knew. So we still need to make efforts for nature and for sustainable efforts, and here universities, schools, educators have their big role to play. Let's first of all notice that during this crisis, we switched very quickly to e-learning. We can debate about the efficiency of lectures, but the switch was very quick, and we did not need transient times. Educators and students could be able to teach, to assess, to communicate using digital tools. So now, really now, it's time to capitalize on this experience, not by making excessive e-learning like we made during the lockdown, but put in a larger dose of digitalization and using technology-enhanced learning. Because, as I said before, this technology can improve digital skills, but it can also help nature or environment by putting best practices for better sustainable development. For example, I will give several examples. It can improve the quality of education because accessing to more resources, more open resources, helps students to understand better their lectures, to master their lessons. So this is obviously the Sustainable Development Goal number 4, which is quality of education. Lectures becoming more accessible. We can hope, we can assume that we'll have less costs of printing lectures, of transports, of dormitories, and so on. So we may help reducing inequalities. This is to link with the speech of Professor Semi. So this is the SDG 10, reducing inequalities. By using digital tools, we will need less transports, less cars to go to systematically to universities. So we can reduce carbon footprint and work on sustainable cities, which is Sustainable Development Goal number 11. And also, by using less paper, less printed paper, we will make less waste and have less waste to manage, which is SDG 13, climate action. So, as I said, we can, by using appropriate technology-enhanced learning, we can work on small points. Perhaps it's epsilons, but for environment, for sustainable development, each epsilon worth it. Nevertheless, as I said, there is always a but. We absolutely need to introduce more lectures about sustainable development. We talk about sustainable development, we try to make it in our everyday life, but we need leaders and managers aware and committed to sustainable development, because they will impulse more actions, they will make it sustainable, and they will help people who want to do it in everyday life. And at least by adding these lectures in our schools and universities, we will help to promote a new generation committed to this, to the environment, to the nature. So I think that these technologies can help if we make it the right way. But if we just have resources and then we go, we have to go to the university to follow the lecture, and then we have to print the book or the lesson and put it after in the waste. We changed nothing. we have to make small actions. We had a first president of Tunisia who built our young democracy, who always talked about successive actions, سياسة المراحل in Arabic. So step by step, we can make it with small actions, but it can be, the term of sustainable is that way, is make it small actions, but permanent actions, not one durable action. So not one action, one big action to make the show, the marketing, and then we stop it, or we make the opposite in other hand. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Professor. Thank you, Professor Wajdi. Thank you very much. It's really interesting, the interventions of colleagues. I think we're almost about time, so but we will be able to finish as quickly as possible. I understand your timetable, but have more questions. So Natalie, and it's an opportunity to develop pedagogical innovation. So she was asking about the things. Now I'm asking you about the impact, major impact that devices on education countries. They think of positive as well as negative impacts. The floor is yours.
I'll be so positive about the impact of the COVID-19. So personally, I consider this crisis as a changing wind in the educational field. And the door, as Mr. Wajdi said, is wide open for implementing new ideas. So as we find it nowadays very hard to give us our cell phone and Netflix, we will find it even harder in the future to go back to the old teaching system. Since the global pandemic gave the old pedagogical system a true push into the 21st century, by forcing teachers and students alike into adopting and relying on the most advanced technical ways in delivering and receiving teaching content in a short period of time. So when this pandemic fades away in the future, like other previous one did, for example, the Spanish flu, the technological strides that were achieved during those difficult times in the pedagogical field will remain and evolve to more efficient teaching system. One of those important achievements was, in the Lebanese context, the new framework that forced teachers to design their lesson in an efficient perspective based on new technical tools. So the content is intended to be delivered remotely under the concept of a flipped classroom based on interactivity and interaction with students using computers and cloud platforms. From the student side, those technological devices like phones, laptops, and pads were used only for gaming and socializing. Nowadays, they became also indispensable for learning. This new system also helped lagging students and ones with special needs to improve more by considering this method as a playful learning. To be noted that it reduced also the student bullying, since the students have minimal contact and they not physical, they are not present physical face to face with the others. This enhanced framework emphasizes on developing skills like critical thinking and soft skills that are considered a must in building the personality of the 21st century student. But as Mr. Nassar said, the only remaining challenges resides in the ability to deliver the online teaching equally to all levels of society, by providing them the needed tools in order to eliminate discrimination. So Mr. Nassar talked about the refugees. I will notice that in Lebanon, even the Lebanese students, they are not equal in these tools and technology. We have families that have, for example, 3 children, and they have only one cell phone to use to online teaching. So this is the challenges that we have, how to deliver, or how to be able to help all children and all students even to have access to this online teaching. And as we are celebrating today the International Day of Education, we must not forget that everyone has the right to education as stated in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And thank you for...
Thank you very much, Natalie, for being that positive. I agree with you that, especially for Lebanon, if there was not the pandemic, you wouldn't have passed to e-learning. So I guess that Lebanon is especially lucky in this. I also agree with you very much on the fact that students with this pandemic are gaining other skills, digital and social. When I look to my son emailing his professors with the professional emails because simply he cannot see them, I just tell myself, oh, it was when I was an engineer and I was a graduate that I could write such emails. But when I was at my first year in the university, I couldn't do this. So thank you for being that positive, and thank you for being with us. In Arabic and Egyptian, we say khitamu misk. So it's like the last thing smells very good, and it's always an excellent contribution. And this will be by Professor Sami Nassar. Our question to you, having evoked the inequality issues, Dr. Sami, and having evoked the characteristics of a new generation that is icon COVID-19 generation, I would like to ask you, do you think that technology-enhanced learning can be considered as a solution for this COVID-19 generation, a solution that responds to their educational and social and societal needs? The floor is yours, Professor Sami.
Thank you. And there is no one solution. I think education have so many futures, not only one future. We are going towards the 4th industrial revolution, and we have so many alternatives and so many futures, and we have to adapt ourselves with the a very changing world. But I think the world post COVID-19 will be different from that pre-COVID-19, and we will not return back to the previous conditions at all. I think so. And technology, artificial intelligence, all these innovations will be available and will be distributed by a way or another all over the world. School buildings and educational tradition structures will disappear behind the clouds of computing networks. Learning will be at any time and from and anywhere. Personalized learning strategies and environments will be used by and will be adapted by ICT and will be available for everyone. The role of teacher will be changed. There will never be one teacher. I think teaching will be a social profession. The professional teacher, the social leaders, the parents, the mother, the neighbors, all this will take part. The peer learners, we can look at for me, my grandsons, they are learning through games, serious games or unserious games. They are learning from their peer learners all over the world. My colleagues have left me. Shift to homeschooling and the rules of parents will be upgraded and will. I fully agree with Natalie and fully agree with Barbara about how can we make technology, IT technology available and use IT technology to overcome the inequality and provide equal opportunities to all to access to education. I think as Barbara has said, partnership and I forgot what she has said, but partnership with all parts of the community will make us now. All partners from the community should participate in providing IT technology facilities and devices to all. I think through access to loans or equipment transfers to students or to households, provision of free internet connections. I think so many European countries has free internet connections in the streets, for example. Public and private partnerships to make platforms and tools for distance learning should be available free of charge. Also, public and private partnerships to guarantee and expand the capacity of the networks and prevent demand of surges. Sometimes the surges on some networks, even in the universities or in schools, makes the access very difficult for students. Digital learning resources for teachers and parents, online and multilingual free educational applications to facilitate learning, provide social care and interaction during the periods of schools. All these measures should be taken to make learning very friendly and to overcome and revitalize again education for the COVID-19 generation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Nassar. A very good resume of what have been said. There is no one miracle. I retain from your intervention the several futures that we are awaiting. Yeah. That's very important, and the several actions also that you have proposed. The social profession would change, and those who would have the label social workers would have different profiles. We will be social workers in a sense with all what we do to mentor and to motivate, to advise our students. Thank you very much. Well, very well articulated. Allow me now to just take a number of comments and maybe 2 questions from the audience before giving the final word to my dear Lilia Schneiti to wrap up and close. So I have been on the chat, and what I could retain, which goes very much in line with what Professor Nassar said, are comments by Dr. Lamia Gamal. Dr. Lamia is, these are not questions really, but she has very much put the accent on inclusiveness. The word inclusive means a lot for her. The social context that has to be studied before thinking solutions for education. And actually, past modalities such as giving the internet and devices and stuff like that, and face-to-face sometimes online. Professor Jalila from Tunisia, she said something, I'll translate in English. If you design pedagogical contents while utilizing the good technology and showing your competences, so you are passing on these competences to the students. That's correct, Professor Jalila. When I do this, when I make the good videos and the good schemes and the good whatever I build for my students, and I ask them to do the same, this actually is a way of passing on the digital competence. Thank you very much for this interaction. Professor Dina Waheba from Alexandria University, she says, in line with what Natalie said, yes, the pandemic was a great opportunity for pedagogical innovations. We have discovered a lot. Now I have one question from an email which is not identified by a name. هو الإيميل اسمه علم اللغة النفسي or something like that. The colleague says that she has or he has a question that I cannot find in the chat. So if you can just put the question here in the chat right away, I will be able to answer it, or ask the my dear panel to answer it. And if any of you, dear colleagues, have 1 or 2 questions, just feel free to raise your hand and I will open your mic. علم اللغة النفس. Yes, I have a question. How I found the question. How and what are the teaching methods used in virtual reality to develop the interpersonal communication skills with early stages from 5 to 8 years? As you know, this is very important in that age where kids learn through social interaction or something like that in their early life and develop their early life skills. Thank you so much. Okay, so علم اللغة النفسي, thank you. I found the question. The question is about how can people at the age from 5 to 8 learn remotely and develop their interpersonal communication. In fact, this is a real problem because I have very children in my family, my nieces, they suffer from e-learning and they are in this age range. So maybe Natalie, you can answer this since you have worked in schools before. Can you answer our colleague, please, Natalie?
So as for those children in the Lebanese system, we are recording sessions. Teachers are recording sessions to promote the lesson and to help the student in each step, how to write, how to read, for example, especially at this age. And here there is a role of parents also who are in between brackets, they are forced to be or obliged to be near their children to help them in this stage.
Okay, Professor Wajdi, would you like to add something?
Yes, just it's clearly beyond my expertise, but we never thought about that. But psychologists say that we don't have to put children in front of a screen during more than 1 or 2 hours. That depends on their age. So we have to take very care about e-learning for this age, 5 to 8. It's very young to have entire sessions of e-learning and so on. So okay to have several activities. It's better than playing, but it have to be reduced in duration. Just
yes. I already mentioned that in my first speech, that we reduced the hour and we reduced the time. And for those children, they only have, for example, languages, French or Arabic languages, just 1 hour totally. So it divided between 10 minutes and 10 other minutes and activity in between. So yes.
Okay, I thank you very much. There is one raised hand. Just a moment. Okay, I think we answered already. So so that is fine. We have answered the question in the chat. Thank you for your contributions. علم النفس اللغوي was Professor Rawhiya. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you for the contribution, Professor Jalila, Professor Lamia, Professor Dina, and all those who wrote on the chat. We conserve this, and we conserve the recording that will be published right away, and we'll send. I thank you each and every one. I will not do the closing. It's you, Lilia, will do it, please. The wrapping up and the closing. But I would like to retain just a small word of each intervention. Barbara said something that is really great. She said, well, the pandemic did not let us run into problems. We had the problems already, but it was like an opportunity to cover them. That's really correct, Barbara. Natalie, you were very fast when you. I thank you for just saying that you took from this opportunity all the positive aspects that that Lebanon was impacted with, and with this positivity, I think you will pass on this positivity to your colleagues and your students, and maybe going through the pandemic would be a lot easier. Professor Korba, that's great. It's not big
We can't hear you. On peut pas t'entendre, Rada.
Okay.
Maintenant, c'est bon. Oui.
Okay. I say that Professor Wajdi told us that sustainability was about little things that we continue doing. So this was it's a very interesting remark. And we, the future social workers, thank you very much for the new label, Dr. Demi. I will present myself today as professor and social worker. Thank you all. The floor is yours. Lilia, please wrap up and close. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, dear colleagues, for your very nice and very important contribution to our discussion. I think, as said Rada, based on what was shared, I think problems are existing already before this crisis in our educational systems, as said Barbara, and as you said, all this this was actually emphasized or enhanced through this digital divide existing between many existing in our society. We see that the problem of equity is more and more emphasized. And as you said, we think that there is a huge work to do towards digital competencies for all actors that are in the education system. We need also that we have to think about research and the way conducting research, as suggested Barbara, and we think that this could be a very nice framework for sustainable development, thanks to this technology enhanced learning. And I think we all agree that maybe one positive thing of this crisis is that what we have reached in acquisition of technology and ability to work online, we have never reached it before. Actually, what we have reached in these last months is really amazing and very huge. And we have to capitalize on this, what we have reached right now, and maybe more orient our practices towards open education as an added value for our practices, for our teaching and learning ways of sharing pedagogical resources. We have also to more train teachers in using technology enhanced learning. As said Natalie, introduction of pedagogical innovation scenarios in our ways of teaching, it would be nice thanks to technology. And equity should be considered, as said Professor Sami Nassar, because we need to consider the population that do not have access to technology and the ways that we can reduce this gap of accessing to technology. Thank you very much, Professor Wajdi Khorbeh, for your very nice contribution. Professor Sami Nassar also for your huge expertise regarding this topic. Professor Natalie Rafael and Professor Barbara Klaas for your expertise and for your time, for sharing with us your thoughts regarding this important topic. Thank you very much to my dear friend Ghada for giving me this opportunity to share together this activity of our Let's Learning Lab network. And I hope that we will still have this motivation toward technology enhanced learning and move forward to the enhancement of the quality of our teaching and learning. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Happy Education Day.
Yes.
Leave the meeting.
We don't have a gâteau to celebrate.
وين التورتة؟ وين التورتة يا غادة؟
Thank you.
On veut les gâteaux, c'est vrai, hein?
On aurait dû préparer un gâteau, oui.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
This is the
Thank you.
advantage of online. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Au revoir.
Bye bye.
Merci beaucoup.